Hey, this is Anjali, and now we're going to do nested if else. So, as we have discussed earlier, that if has four different ways to use, that is independent if statements, if else, else if ladder, and now the fourth one is nested if else. Now, in case of nested if else, nesting means one block inside the other block. So, here we have one if inside another if. That's called nesting. So if I've given a condition here and we execute certain statements and we check one more condition inside that. So if you're checking a condition inside another if, this becomes nesting of if else. I can have an else part with the inner if also, and the inner if will get it else first and the outer if will get the else later. So if first condition is true, it will come here and then check for the second condition. But if the first condition, that is this one, is false, the whole block is ignored and it directly comes over here to the else part. So this is how we have nested if else. So here an inner condition is checked only if the outer condition is true. Otherwise we never reach here. Like we can have an if else block inside the if block, we can have an if else block inside else block as well. In that case, that condition will be checked only if the upper condition is false. Let's take an example to have a better understanding. Let's say I have to make a program for greatest of three numbers. Now in the last lecture we did else if ladder. If I had to do it with else if ladder, it would have been like this, that we read the three numbers n1, n2, n3 from the t1, t2, t3 text fields, and then I have this code to find the greatest of three numbers. That is, I check if n1 is greater than n2 and n1 is greater than n3. If both the conditions are true, then we show the greatest number as n1. Else if we show it as n2, and if the second condition is also false, that is n2 greater than n1 and n2 greater than n3 is also false, then we come to this else and we show n3. So if the first one is true, we show n1. In case of second, it's n2. And if both are false, then obviously the third number is greater, assuming that the numbers are not equal. So we get n3. So this is done with the help of else if ladder. So first I'll show you the execution of this, and then we'll do the same thing with the help of nested if else. I enter three numbers in this. Let it be this, and the greatest number is 89 out of this. Then if I have entered 98 here, so the greatest number is 98. If I make this change, so greatest number is 742. So we can see we are getting the result in the proper way, but now I have to get the same result but with a different code. So as a programmer, it's totally your wish which option you want to use, but you should know how to use each of these. So to do it with nested if else, I have to read the values the same way, but then I have to change this code. So I don't need this code now. I'll be writing a code with nested if else. So first of all, I check if n1 is greater than n2. If n1 is greater than n2, then only I should check if n1 is greater than n3 as well. And in case n1 is not greater than n2, there is no point checking whether it is greater than n3 or not. So if the outer condition is true, then only the inner one will be checked. And now we have two options. Either the inner one will be true or it will be false. If it is true, that means n1 is the greatest value. Since n1 is greater than n2, that is true. And now we have checked n1 is greater than n3. That is also true. So n1 becomes the greatest value. But what if the condition becomes false? What if the condition becomes false? Now when we come to the inner condition, we already know that n1 is greater than n2. Then we check this one, if n1 is greater than n3. If this becomes false, that means the opposite is true. n3 is greater than n1. And we know that n1 is already greater than n2. So that says that the highest number is n3. So we use n3 over here as the greatest number. Else. Now this else is for the outer if, this one. If n1 greater than n2. If this condition is false, n1 is not greater than n2, then obviously the reverse is true. That means n2 is greater than n1. So I don't need to check it over here. It's quite obvious that if n1 is not greater, n2 is greater. Okay, now I know in the else block that n2 is greater. So I need to check if n2 is greater than n3. So if n2 is greater than n3, what I need to show it that n2 is the greatest number, because n2 is greater than n1 as well as it's greater than n3. So it becomes the greatest number. But if this condition becomes false, that means n3 is greater than n2 and n2 is already greater than n1. So the greatest number in this case also becomes n3. So that would be the greatest number. So this is the code to find greatest of three numbers with the help of nested if-else. It is complex for you as a programmer, as a beginner, but it saves processing time of the system. Here at max, always only two conditions are checked and you get the result. Like if the first one is true and this one is true, you get this result. If the first one is true, this one is false, you get this result. If the first one is false, this one is true, we get this. And if this is also false, this is also false, we get this. So whatever the answer is, maximum only two conditions are being checked out here. So it's effective, it fastens the execution speed, and it's totally your choice which tool you want to use to get the result. There would be no difference in the output. So if I'm going to execute it, I'll get the result in the same way as we got in the last run. Now if I enter 123, so greatest is this, and now if I execute it, so greatest is this. So that's how we can do greatest of three numbers with the help of nested if-else. So these are the different four forms of using if statement. Whichever you have to use depends on the application, depends upon your comfort, and whatever you choose is best for your program. I hope you understood the concept. Share it with your friends so that they can also view it and understand the concept. In case of any doubts, write in the comment section. And in case you've not subscribed the channel yet, do subscribe it. Thank you.